Michael Carter, a 38-year-old white American with a lean frame and tired hazel eyes, sat alone in his cramped Chicago apartment, the faint glow of a desk lamp illuminating a clutter of takeout containers and financial reports. The one-bedroom rental apartment in a noisy downtown high-rise was as bare as his personal life. A sagging couch, a small table buried under coffee mugs, and a single framed photo of a generic beach scene bought to make the place feel less empty. Michael, an accountant at Pinnacle Enterprises, had spent the last decade chasing promotions, his days consumed by spreadsheets and deadlines. His nights, however, were silent, save for the hum of the city outside his window. Having grown up in foster care, shuffled between homes after losing his parents at age 10, Michael had learned early to rely only on himself. Relationships felt like liabilities, and friendships faded under the weight of his work obsession. Yet in a moment of weakness a year ago, he'd spun a lie to fit in at Pinnacle, a company where family-oriented employees seemed to earn favor. During a casual chat with his boss, David Reynolds, Michael, feeling the sting of being the odd man out, claimed he had a wife and a son. The lie slipped out easily, a harmless fib he thought to dodge questions about his solitary life. That Friday evening, October 12th, 2025, Michael worked late in Pinnacle's glass-walled office tower. His desk, a fortress of papers on the 42nd floor. The city skyline glittered beyond the windows, but he barely noticed his eyes fixed on a budget report. At 9:47 p.m., his phone vibrated atop a stack of documents, jolting him from his focus. The screen flashed David's name, a 52-year-old white American with a commanding presence and a penchant for traditional values. Michael's stomach tightened. David's calls were rarely casual. "Michael, good to catch you." David's voice boomed, cheerful but hurried. "Tomorrow's the big gala, and I'm thrilled to meet your family finally. Showing them off to the executives will be great, solidifying your place here." Michael's heart raced. The Gala, Pinnacle's annual black tie event, had slipped his mind amid his relentless workload. His co-workers had buzzed about it for weeks, but Michael, consumed by numbers, had tuned them out. Now David's words hit like a freight train. David continued, "That your wife and son will love it," oblivious to Michael's panic. "Introduce them at the entrance. Okay? I value stability in my team, and this is your chance to shine." Michael's throat went dry. "Of course, sir." He managed his voice thin. "It'll be a pleasure." The call ended, and the office's silence felt suffocating. His lie, born from a desperate need to seem relatable, was now a noose. He was single, childless, and lived in a 600-square-foot apartment that screamed solitude. The thought of confessing to David, a man who prized family as a cornerstone of loyalty, was unthinkable. A confession could cost him his job, or at the very least, the promotion he'd spent years chasing, a senior analyst role that promised a corner office and respect he'd never known. Michael shoved his papers into a briefcase, his hands trembling, and turned off the desk lamp. The darkened office mirrored his dread. He nodded curtly to the night guard, a middle-aged black man, and stepped into the elevator, the descent feeling like a plunge into his unraveling. Outside, Chicago's autumn chill hit him, the wind cutting through his thin jacket. As he walked toward the subway, his mind churned with desperate ideas. He couldn't show up alone tomorrow. David's expectations were clear. The lie had snowballed from a casual remark into a career-defining moment. Michael recalled the conversation that began with David over coffee, asking if a family member was sick when Michael missed a meeting. To avoid scrutiny, Michael invented a wife recovering from a minor illness, adding a son for good measure. It had felt like a shield protecting him from pitying glances. Now it was a trap. On the subway, surrounded by strangers, he leaned against a pole, his reflection in the window showing a man fraying at the edges. He needed a wife and son. By tomorrow night, someone believable, trustworthy, and willing to play along for a few hours. Michael collapsed onto the couch in his apartment, his work bag spilling onto the floor. The clock read 10:32 p.m. Hiring an actress was his first thought, but the idea crumbled. Too expensive, too risky, and too little time to find someone credible. He called 2 old college acquaintances, but they laughed off his plea, one jokingly suggesting a social media post. Frustrated, Michael dismissed the idea. He needed discretion, not a public stunt. Then a memory surfaced. Aisha Thompson, a 35-year-old Black American he'd met 6 months ago at a community fundraiser for a local shelter. Aisha, a single mother with a warm smile and tired eyes, had mentioned struggling with debts. Her son Jamal, about 13, had been there helping with enthusiasm, but hinting at their financial strain. Michael barely knew her, but she seemed kind, resilient, and crucially someone who might need the money he could offer. His finger hovered over her contact, saved from the fundraiser's volunteer list. What if she thought he was insane? What if she refused? But with no other options and the gala looming, he dialed her number, his heart pounding as the phone rang in the quiet of his lonely apartment. Michael's phone trembled in his hand as he sat on his sagging couch, the clock on his apartment wall ticking past midnight. The city's hum filtered through the window, a distant reminder of Chicago's sleepless pulse. But inside, his world felt frozen. The call to Aisha Thompson was a gamble born of desperation. He barely knew her, just a few conversations during a shelter fundraiser 6 months ago, where her warm smile and quick wit had stood out despite her visible exhaustion. Her contact, buried in an old volunteer list, was his last hope to salvage the lie that threatened his career. The phone rang 4 times before Aisha's groggy and cautious voice answered. "Hello?" "Who's this?" Michael cleared his throat, his voice tight. "Aisha, it's Michael Carter from the fundraiser. I'm so sorry for calling late. I need to talk something urgent. Can we meet tomorrow morning? I'll cover coffee, dinner, whatever you want." A pause stretched long enough to make his palms sweat. "Michael, the guy who organized the donation drive?" She asked, her tone wary but softening. "What's so urgent at this hour?" He hesitated, the absurdity of his request lodging in his throat. "It's complicated. Work-related. I need 30 minutes. Please." Aisha sighed, her suspicion palpable, but agreed to meet at a diner near her apartment at 8 a.m., asking him to text the address. As the call ended, Michael exhaled, the weight of his predicament pressing harder. He showered quickly, the hot water failing to calm his nerves, and rehearsed his pitch, knowing it sounded insane even to himself. The next morning, October 13th, 2025. Michael arrived early at the Sunrise Diner, a cozy spot with checkered floors and the aroma of fresh coffee. He chose a corner table by a window, overlooking the bustling street, where cars and pedestrians blurred into a gray autumn backdrop. His hands fidgeted with a double espresso, the cup rattling slightly against the saucer. Aisha walked in at 8:02, her hair pulled into a neat bun, her jacket tidy but straightforward. Her eyes, sharp yet tired, scanned the room before landing on him. She offered a faint smile and sat across, pushing the menu aside. "All right, Michael, what's this mysterious job?" she asked. Her eyebrow raised, voice direct, but not unkind. Michael took a deep breath, his prepared words jumbling. I need you to pretend to be my wife. Just for one night at my company's gala. And your son Jamal will act as our son." Aisha's expression froze, her mouth parting slightly, unsure whether to laugh or bolt. "You're serious," she said, leaning back, her arms crossing. Michael nodded, sweat beading on his neck, and launched into his explanation. He recounted the lie he'd told his boss David about being married with a son to seem stable and promotion-worthy. Now hours away, the gala was his chance to impress Pinnacle's executives, but showing up alone would expose him, risking his job. I know it's wild, he admitted, but I'm desperate. I'll pay you $5,000, enough to help with your debts. Maybe get Jamal that gaming console he wants. It's one evening, a few hours of acting. Aisha's gaze drifted to the window, her fingers tightening around her coffee mug. She was silent, processing. Michael pressed on, sensing her hesitation. I remembered you mentioned money troubles at the fundraiser. I don't mean to pry, but I thought this could help us both. Aisha's eyes snapped back to him, a flicker of defensiveness giving way to resignation. You're not wrong, she said quietly. Things have been rough. My mom's medical bills piled up before she passed last year. My ex Marcus left us with nothing but debts after our divorce. I'm behind on rent, and Jamal. He's been asking for this console, but I can barely keep the lights on. Her voice cracked, revealing the weight of her struggles. She leaned forward, her tone firm. But this, pretending to be your wife? It's not just about money. It's lying, dragging my son into it. Why should I trust you? Michael swallowed, meeting her gaze. Because I'm not trying to hurt anyone. I'm stuck, Aisha. If I don't pull this off, I lose everything I've worked for. I'll make sure you and Jamal are safe, and I'll pay up front if you want. Aisha studied him, her eyes searching for sincerity. She thought of Jamal, 13 and fiercely independent, who deserved more than their cramped apartment and constant financial strain. The $5,000 could clear her most pressing debts and give him a moment of joy. But the idea of involving him in a charade gnawed at her. I need to talk to Jamal first, she said finally. He's smart, but he's not a prop. If he's not okay with this, it's a no. Michael nodded, relief, mixing with anxiety. Fair. Can he meet us here? I'd rather explain it to him myself. Aisha called Jamal, who was at home playing video games, and asked him to come to the diner. 20 minutes later, he arrived, his baseball cap tilted and headphones dangling around his neck. He slid into the booth, eyeing Michael skeptically. So you're the guy who wants me to play your kid for a night? He asked bluntly, dropping his backpack. Michael forced a smile. Yeah, that's me. It's a company party, a few hours. You act like my son. I'll get you that new console you want. Jamal's eyes lit up briefly, but he glanced at his mom, reading her unease. What's the catch? He asked, crossing his arms. Aisha explained the deal, her voice steady, but laced with guilt. Jamal listened, then grinned. Sounds like a movie. I'm in, but I want proof of that console first. Michael laughed, the tension easing slightly. Deal. We'll work out the details this afternoon. Aisha's phone buzzed, a reminder from her landlord about overdue rent. She sighed, looking at her son and Michael. Okay, she said, her voice resolute but heavy. Let's do this. But we do it right or we're out. As they left the diner, Michael felt a flicker of hope, but the weight of their agreement and the lies it required hung over him like a storm cloud. Michael paced Aisha's small living room, the late afternoon light filtering through faded curtains in her modest Chicago apartment. The space was cozy, but worn a second-hand couch, a coffee table cluttered with bills, and a few framed photos of Aisha and Jamal smiling at a park. It was October 13th, 2025, and the Pinnacle Gala loomed less than 24 hours away. Michael, Aisha, and Jamal sat around the table, a notebook open with scribbled notes for their fake family backstory. The air buzzed with nervous energy, but a tentative warmth grew among them. Aisha sipped tea, her posture relaxed, but her eyes alert, while Jamal sprawled in his chair, twirling a pencil. Michael, still rattled from his earlier panic, spread out a timeline. We need a story that holds up, he said, his voice steadier than he felt. Something simple but believable. No holes. Aisha nodded, setting her mug down. Let's say we met 3 years ago at a community event, like the fundraiser where we met. Keeps it close to the truth. Michael jotted it down, appreciating her pragmatism. Good. We started dating, got married in a quiet courthouse ceremony a year later on May 15th, 2023. No big wedding, so no one expects photos. Jamal grinned, leaning forward. What about me? Am I like the perfect kid or a troublemaker? Aisha shot him a playful glare. You just polite at the gala. Say you were born September 9th, close to your real birthday, so you don't slip up. Jamal chuckled, suggesting, how about we met because you two got stuck in an elevator at the event? Super romantic. Michael laughed, the tension in his shoulders easing. Too dramatic. Let's stick with a coffee spill at the fundraiser. I helped clean it up and we got talking. Aisha smirked. Cliché, but it works. As they fleshed out details where they lived, a fictional suburban house, their anniversary trip, a weekend in Wisconsin, Michael felt an unexpected lightness. Jamal's teasing kept the mood buoyant, but deeper currents ran beneath. Michael, prompted by Aisha's curious glance, shared his past. Growing up in foster care, I never had a family to show off. He admitted, his fingers tracing the notebook's edge. At Pinnacle, everyone talks about their kids and their spouses. I lied to blend in, to feel normal. Aisha's expression softened. She leaned forward, her voice low. I get it. After Marcus left, I thought I had to prove I could handle everything alone. But it's hard raising Jamal and keeping the bills paid. Sometimes I feel like I'm failing him. Jamal looked up, surprised. Mom, you're not failing. You're like Wonder Woman. Aisha's eyes glistened and she squeezed his hand. The moment shifted when Jamal asked Michael, so what's your deal? Why no real family? Michael hesitated, the question cutting deep. I learned early not to get attached. Every year, foster homes and new schools have made me good at being alone. Work became my focus, but it's lonely. I thought faking a family would make me enough. Aisha met his gaze, her voice gentle. You don't need to fake it to be enough. The words hung in the air, a quiet bridge between them. Jamal, sensing the weight, lightened it. Okay. But if I'm your fake son, can I say you're a nerdy accountant who loves bad puns? Michael grinned, grateful. Only if I can say you're obsessed with gaming. Jamal laughed, and Aisha shook her head, a smile breaking through. Their planning grew more animated. Sketching a shared history, Michael proposed at a lakeside park. Jamal approved, after Michael fixed his bike. The stories, though fabricated, felt vivid, weaving them closer. Aisha shared a memory of Jamal's first soccer game, her pride masking the pain of Marcus's absence. Michael moved, recounted a rare, happy moment from foster care, a foster brother teaching him to ride a bike. Jamal listened, his usual sarcasm softened. That's cool, he said quietly. Kinda like us fixing this mess together. Michael nodded, a warmth spreading in his chest. For the first time, he felt like more than a man. With a lie, he was part of something, even if it was pretend. As they wrapped up, agreeing to rehearse again that evening, Aisha's phone buzzed with a text from her landlord, a stark reminder of her debts. She sighed, tucking it away. This better work, Michael. For all of us. He met her eyes, his voice firm. It will. I'll ensure you and Jamal get what you need no matter what. They stood, the notebook filled with their crafted story, but the real connection forming was unspoken, a fragile trust built on shared vulnerability. As Michael left, he glanced back at Aisha and Jamal, mother and son silhouetted against the window, and felt a flicker of hope. Tomorrow's gala would test their charade, but for now, their laughter lingered, a small shield against the storm ahead. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across Chicago's bustling streets as Michael, Aisha, and Jamal left the Sunrise Diner, their fake family backstory freshly outlined. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of autumn leaves and exhaust. Michael's briefcase swung lightly at his side, filled with notes for their charade at Pinnacle's gala. now less than a day away on October 14th, 2025. Aisha walked beside him, her jacket zipped against the chill, her expression a mix of determination and unease. Jamal, headphones dangling around his neck, bounced with restless energy, his backpack slung over one shoulder. Their laughter from the diner lingered, but the weight of their agreement pressed down as they turned onto a quieter street toward Aisha's apartment. A harsh voice cut through the hum of the city. "Aisha, you think you can dodge me forever?" A man stepped from the shadow of a storefront, his bulky frame blocking their path. Leon, a creditor from Aisha's past, loomed with a scowl, his eyes narrowing on her. Aisha froze her hand, instinctively reaching for Jamal's arm. "Leon, not now," she said, her voice steady but tight. Michael's pulse quickened, sensing the threat. Leon, in a worn leather jacket, jabbed a finger toward Aisha. "You owe me for those hospital bills. 3 grand. Aisha, and I'm done waiting." His tone dripped with menace, drawing the attention of a few passers-by. Aisha's shoulders tensed, her eyes flashing with defiance. "I told you I'm working on it. This isn't the place." Jamal stepped forward, his jaw set. "Back off, man," Leon sneered, shoving Jamal's shoulder, causing the boy to stumble. Michael's instincts kicked in. He dropped his briefcase and stepped between them, his voice firm. "Hey, leave him alone." Leon turned his glare to Michael, sizing him up. "Who's this, your new boyfriend covering your debts?" Before Michael could respond, Leon shoved him hard, sending him against a lamppost. Pain flared in Michael's shoulder, but he steadied himself, adrenaline surging. "We're handling it," he said, raising his hands to de-escalate. Jamal, undeterred, pushed back at Leon, his voice cracking with anger. "Don't touch my mom!" The commotion drew a small crowd, and the diner's owner, a wiry man with a stern face, emerged, shouting, "Take it somewhere else, or I'm calling the cops." Leon's eyes darted to the gathering onlookers, his aggression wavering. He jabbed a finger at Aisha again. "Pay up, or you'll regret it, all of you." With a final glare, he turned and disappeared into the crowd. Michael, breathing heavily, picked up his briefcase, his arm throbbing. Aisha's face was pale, her hands trembling as she pulled Jamal close. She asked her son, who nodded, his eyes still fixed on the spot where Leon had vanished. Michael dusted off his jacket, forcing a calm he didn't feel. "You both all right?" Aisha met his gaze, her expression a mix of gratitude and guilt. "Thanks for stepping in," she said softly. "I didn't expect that." Jamal, still bristling, muttered, "Guy's a jerk. You didn't have to get shoved for us." Michael managed a small smile, wincing as he touched his shoulder. "Comes with the fake family package, I guess." Aisha's lips twitched, and a faint laugh broke through her worry. They resumed walking, the incident casting a shadow over their earlier lightness. They paused at the entrance of Aisha's apartment building, a squat brick structure with peeling paint. Aisha hesitated, and then spoke, her voice low. "Leon's been after me since my mom's hospital bills piled up. Marcus, my ex, was supposed to help, but he bailed, leaving us with nothing. I hate that you got caught in this." Michael shook his head, his resolve hardening. "I'm in this with you now, not just for the gala, but to ensure you and Jamal are safe." Jamal looked at him, his usual bravado softened. "You mean that, 'cause that was some serious hero stuff back there." Michael chuckled, the tension easing slightly. "I'm no hero, kid. Just trying to keep us all in one piece." Inside Aisha's apartment, they sat around her small kitchen table, the weight of the confrontation lingering. Aisha poured water, her hands steadier now. "We need to focus," she said. "Leon's trouble, but the gala's tomorrow. We stick to the plan and get through it, and I'll deal with him after." Michael nodded, pulling out their notebook. Right. We've got our story, coffee spill courthouse wedding quiet life. Let's run through it tonight and make it tight. Jamal grinned, trying to lighten the mood. Can I say you're a terrible cook, Dad? Michael laughed the word. Dad hitting harder than he expected. Only if I tell you that you leave dishes everywhere. As they reviewed their backstory, the apartment's warmth contrasted with the danger outside. Michael felt a shift. He wasn't protecting his job anymore and shielding Aisha and Jamal. Aisha's glance held a flicker of trust, and Jamal's teasing felt like camaraderie. The gala loomed, but for now their shared defiance against Leon bound them a makeshift family facing a real threat together. The evening of October 13th, 2025, settled over Chicago with a damp chill, the city's lights reflecting off wet pavement. Inside Aisha's modest apartment, Michael, Aisha, and Jamal huddled around the kitchen table, their fake family backstory, now a neatly written script in Michael's notebook. The confrontation with Leon earlier that day lingered like a bruise, but they pushed forward, determined to perfect their act for Pinnacle's gala tomorrow. Aisha, her hair tied back, traced a finger over their timeline, her voice steady but laced with tension. We've got the basics. We met at the fundraiser, married in May 2023, and live in a quiet suburb. But we need to nail the small stuff. Favorite meals, family traditions. Jamal slouched in his chair, grinned. Easy. You make terrible meatloaf, Dad, and I'm always gaming. Michael chuckled, but his eyes darted to his phone buzzing on the table. A text from David. His boss lit up the screen, and his stomach nodded as he read it. Marcus is confirmed for the gala, and the message has begun. He's practically family here, eager to meet your wife and son. Don't be late. Michael's face paled, the name Marcus hitting like a punch. Aisha noticed her brow furrowing. What's wrong? She asked, setting down her pen. Michael hesitated, then turned the phone toward her. Marcus, your ex. He's going to be at the gala. David thinks he's a model employee who is close to him. If he sees us. He trailed off, the implications clear. Aisha's breath caught her hands clenching the table's edge. Jamal's playful demeanor vanished, his fists tightening as he stared at the floor. Marcus, Aisha whispered, her voice heavy with anger and dread. He's the last person I wanted to see. She stood pacing to the window, her reflection faint against the dark glass. Marcus and I split 5 years ago. She said, her words measured but raw. He was charming initially, but he drained our savings, gambling bad investments. When I confronted him, he walked out, leaving me and Jamal with nothing but his debts. I haven't seen him since. But he works at Pinnacle now, right? Michael nodded, his throat dry. He's a senior manager, one of David's favorites. If he recognizes you and Jamal, our story falls apart. He could tell David everything. Jamal's head snapped up, his eyes blazing. He doesn't get to mess with us again. He ditched me, never even called. Now he's gonna ruin this too. His voice cracked, betraying the hurt beneath his anger. Michael leaned forward, his mind racing. We could limit our time at the gala, stick to the edges, and avoid him. Aisha shook her head, returning to the table. No. If we're too cagey, David will notice. I need that $5,000, Michael. It's my rent, Jamal's school fees, a chance to breathe. We have to go all in. Her eyes met his, fierce but pleading. Michael felt the weight of her trust stirring something protective in him. Okay, he said, his voice firm. We stick to the plan and act naturally. Marcus hasn't seen you in years. Maybe he won't make a scene. Jamal scoffed, but his expression softened as he looked at his mom. I'll play along, but I'm not staying quiet if he says anything to you. Aisha touched his shoulder, a silent reassurance. They resumed planning, but the mood was heavier now. Aisha shared more about Marcus's betrayal, how he'd promised to support Jamal's dreams only to disappear, leaving her to juggle single motherhood and creditors like Leon. She admitted, I thought I'd moved past it. her voice low. "But knowing he's out there thriving at your company while we struggle stings." Michael listened, his guilt surfacing. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this," he said. "I didn't know it'd get this complicated." Aisha's gaze softened. "You didn't drag us. I chose this for Jamal. For me." Jamal, quiet for once, added, "And I'm in 'cause I want that console. But also, you're not the worst fake dad." The quip drew a small laugh, easing the tension. As they finalized details, how to dodge probing questions, what to say about family vacations, Michael's phone buzzed again. Another text from David. "Excited to see your family blend with ours. Marcus says he's got a surprise." The word sent a chill down Michael's spine. Was Marcus suspicious already? He showed the text to Aisha, who exhaled sharply. "He always loved surprises," she muttered, her tone bitter. Jamal clenched his fists, but Aisha squeezed his hand. "We'll be ready," she said, her voice resolute. Michael nodded, feeling their shared resolve tighten their bond. The gala was no longer just about his promotion. It was about protecting Aisha and Jamal from a past that refused to stay buried. As they parted for the night, agreeing to meet early tomorrow, Michael felt a flicker of courage. Marcus was a threat, but together they were a fragile but determined team, facing the ghosts of their past head-on. The morning of October 14th, 2025, dawned gray and cold. Chicago's skyline shrouded in mist. Michael woke in Aisha's spare room, a cramped space with a creaky cot, his body stiff from restless sleep. "I need to grab outfits for you and Jamal, something sharp for the gala." Aisha nodded, her gaze lingering. "Be careful out there. After Leon. I don't trust the streets." Michael promised to be quick, pulling on a cap to shield his face from the morning drizzle. He left the apartment, the stairwell's echo amplifying his footsteps. The anonymous text gnawed at him, but he couldn't back out now, not with Aisha counting on the $5,000 and his job on the line. He headed to a boutique a few blocks away, its windows displaying sleek dresses and tailored blazers. Inside, he chose a navy dress for Aisha, elegant but understated, and a light shirt and blazer for Jamal, youthful yet polished. As he paid, his phone remained silent, the absence of new threats oddly unsettling. Carrying the shopping bags, Michael stepped into the alley beside the boutique, the damp air chilling his skin. A figure emerged from the shadows, a man in a dark hoodie, his face half hidden. Before Michael could react, the man charged, shoving him against the brick wall. The bags dropped, clothes spilling onto the wet pavement. "Stay away from Aisha," the man growled, his voice low and menacing. "You think you can play house with Marcus's family?" Michael's breath caught the mention of Marcus, confirming his fears. Pain seared his shoulder as the man pinned him, a fist grazing his jaw. "I don't know what you're talking about," Michael gasped, struggling to break free. His glasses fell clattering to the ground. The man sneered, landing a punch to Michael's side that stole his breath. "Quit the act or it gets worse." Fueled by desperation, Michael shoved back, catching the man off balance. A passing car's horn blared, startling the attacker, who glared and hissed, last warning before vanishing into the crowd. Michael slumped against the wall, his jaw throbbing, his shirt rumpled. Blood trickled from a cut above his eyebrow. "This is getting dangerous," she said, her voice trembling. "Let's stop." Michael shook his head, meeting her gaze. "If we stop, I will lose my job, and you won't get the money. We're in too deep." Jamal nodded, his voice fierce. "I'm not letting Marcus scare us. I want that console, but I want to stick it to him." Aisha hesitated, then sighed, her resolve hardening. "All right, we do this together. But no more secrets, Michael. If something else happens, you tell us." He nodded, the ice soothing his pain. As they unpacked the outfits, Jamal held up the blazer, grinning despite the tension. "Not bad, fake dad." Michael laughed, the sound shaky, but genuine, their shared defiance, forging a stronger bond against the shadows closing in. The late afternoon of October 14th, 2025, cast a soft glow through the curtains of Aisha's Chicago apartment, the air thick with the scent of coffee and nervous anticipation. The Pinnacle Gala was hours away, and Michael, Aisha, and Jamal gathered in the living room, surrounded by scattered photos and a half-finished fake family album. Michael's face still bore the marks of the morning's attack, a bruised jaw and a cut above his eyebrow, hastily covered with a bandage. Aisha, her hair tied loosely arranged Polaroids they doctored to show family moments, her fingers steady, but her eyes flickering with worry. Jamal sprawled on the couch, flipped through their notebook of scripted answers, his usual smirk tempered by the weight of their situation. The anonymous text and Michael's assault had raised the stakes, but the trio pressed on their bond, tightening like a knot against the looming threat of Marcus. Michael sat at the table, his cracked glasses slipping down his nose. "Let's run through it again," he said, his voice firm despite the ache in his side. "David will ask questions about where we met and how long we've been married. We can't falter." Aisha nodded, flipping to their timeline. "We met at the fundraiser, spilled coffee, and got married May 15th, 2023 at the courthouse. Jamal's our son, born September 9th, loves gaming." Jamal grinned, tossing in, "And you're a nerdy accountant who burns toast." "Dad." Aisha rolled her eyes, but a laugh escaped, easing the tension. "Keep it simple, Jamal. No ad-libbing at the gala." Michael smiled, the playful jab warming the room. He suggested a rehearsal, taking the role of David. "So, Aisha, how'd you and Michael meet?" he asked, mimicking his boss's booming tone. Aisha leaned forward, her smile practiced but natural. "He spilled coffee on my scarf at a charity event, helped me clean it up, and we just clicked." Her hand brushed Michael's, a staged gesture that felt oddly genuine. Jamal, playing the bored teen, slouched dramatically. "Yeah, they're gross together, always talking about taxes or something." Michael laughed, but Aisha swatted Jamal's arm, her grin betraying her amusement. The rehearsal flowed, their answers growing smoother with each pass. Aisha shared a memory between lines, taking Jamal to his first basketball game, cheering alone in the stands, while wishing for a partner to share the moment. Michael moved and opened up about a foster home, where a kind teacher taught him to balance a checkbook, a rare moment of care in his lonely youth. "It's why I clung to work," he admitted, his voice low. "It was the only thing that felt solid." Jamal, quieter now, said, "Sounds like me and Mom. We've only had each other." Aisha's eyes softened, and she squeezed Jamal's hand, the shared vulnerability knitting them closer. Their light-hearted practice paused when Michael's phone buzzed on the table, the screen flashing another unknown number. His stomach dropped as he opened the message. "You're out of time. Back off." Aisha, reading over his shoulder, inhaled sharply. "Marcus," she whispered, her face tight with fear. Jamal's fists clenched, his voice sharp. "He's trying to scare us. We can't let him." Michael set the phone down, his jaw tight. "We won't. But we need to be smart. Arrive late to the gala, blend into the crowd, and avoid Marcus until we meet David." Aisha nodded, her resolve hardening. "Agreed. We stick to the plan and keep our answers tight. No mistakes." Jamal, still bristling, added, "If he comes at us, I'm ready. He doesn't get to mess with Mom again." Aisha's gaze softened, but she said firmly, "You stay calm, Jamal. We're a team." They resumed practicing responses to trickier questions, family traditions, favorite vacations. Jamal suggested they claim a yearly camping trip because it sounds boring enough to be real. Michael laughed, adding, and I'm terrible at pitching tents. The humor felt like a shield, but the threat of Marcus loomed. As they worked, Aisha pulled out a photo of her and Jamal at a lake, editing Michael into the frame with clumsy precision. "It's not perfect," she said, "but it'll pass a glance." Michael studied the image, a pang in his chest at the sight of their smiles. "It's more than I've ever had," he said quietly. Aisha met his eyes, a flicker of understanding passing between them. Jamal, noticing, broke the moment with a grin. "Okay, but I'm eating all the s'mores if we're camping." The laughter that followed felt like a lifeline binding them against the shadows of doubt creeping closer. As evening fell, they agreed to meet early tomorrow to finalize their outfits and story. Michael stood, his bruises aching, but his resolve firm. He said, "We'll get through this," by looking at Aisha and Jamal. "Together." Aisha nodded, her voice steady. "No turning back now." Jamal fist-bumped him, a small gesture of trust. As Michael left, the weight of the threatening text lingered, but so did the warmth of their shared laughter, a fragile armor for the battle ahead. The evening of October 14th, 2025, glittered with the promise of elegance, as Michael, Aisha, and Jamal stepped out of a taxi in front of Chicago's Grand Horizon Hall. The gala venue loomed, its marble facade aglow with golden lights, a red carpet stretching past ornamental planters to the entrance. Michael adjusted his navy suit, the fabric snug against his bruised frame, the faint cut above his eyebrow concealed with makeup Aisha had applied. Aisha, radiant in a navy dress that hugged her curves, looped her arm through his, her smile practiced but warm. In a crisp blazer and light shirt, Jamal grumbled about the stiff collar, but flashed a charming grin. As planned, the trio had arrived late to slip into the crowd and avoid Marcus, whose presence hung over them like a storm cloud. The threatening texts and Michael's earlier assault had sharpened their resolve, but the air crackled with nervous anticipation as they crossed the threshold into Pinnacle's annual gala. Inside, the spacious hall sparkled under crystal chandeliers, the soft hum of jazz mingling with the clink of glasses. Tables draped in white linen lined a central carpet, and servers glided with trays of sparkling wine. Michael's heart thudded, his eyes scanning for Marcus or David, his boss, among the sea of tailored suits and elegant dresses. The crowd, a mix of Pinnacle's executives and employees, buzzed with chatter, their curious glances landing on the trio. Aisha squeezed Michael's arm, her voice low. "We've got this." Smile, act natural. Jamal, playing his part, slouched slightly, muttering, "This place is fancy. Bet they've got good snacks." Michael chuckled, the quip easing his nerves as they moved deeper into the hall, blending with the guests. A colleague, Sarah, approached her, smile wide. "Michael, you've been hiding this family," she exclaimed, eyeing Aisha and Jamal. "This must be your wife and son." Aisha extended a hand, her poise flawless. "I'm Aisha." "It's nice to meet you. Michael's always talking about work, so we stay out of the spotlight." Sarah laughed, charmed. "And you're the son?" she asked Jamal, who grinned. "Yeah, I'm Jamal. Dad's boring, but he's all right." The group chuckled, and Michael felt relieved their act was holding. Another co-worker, Tom, joined, praising Aisha's elegance and teasing Michael about keeping his family a secret. "You're a dark horse, Carter," Tom said, clapping Michael's shoulder. Michael forced a smile, his eyes darting to the stage where David, a commanding figure in a tuxedo, chatted with executives. David hadn't noticed them yet, and a small mercy allowed them to settle into their roles. Michael excused himself to fetch drinks, leaving Aisha and Jamal near a floral display. Aisha whispered to Jamal, "You're doing great, but don't overdo the snacks." Jamal smirked, eyeing a passing tray of hors d'oeuvres and keeping it real. "Mom." Their banter, light but practiced, drew admiring glances from nearby guests. Michael returned with 2 sodas and a water bottle, handing them out as he scanned the room. There was no sign of Marcus. He murmured, his voice tight. Aisha nodded, her eyes flickering to the entrance. Let's keep moving. Stay in the crowd. They mingled, exchanging pleasantries with more colleagues, each interaction reinforcing their facade. Aisha's warm laugh and Jamal's witty remarks sold their story, and for a fleeting moment, Michael felt they were a real family, the lie blurring into something almost true. The hall's energy shifted as a lively group entered, their laughter echoing. Michael's stomach dropped as he spotted Marcus among them, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his confident stride unmistakable from Aisha's old photos. Aisha's grip on Michael's arm tightened, her breath catching. Jamal stepped back, his face hardening, memories of his father's absence surfacing. "That's him," Aisha whispered, her voice barely audible. Michael followed their gaze, his pulse racing. Marcus shook hands, his smile charming but sharp, oblivious to their presence. "Stay calm," Michael said softly, handing Aisha her water. "We stick to the plan. Meet David. Keep it short. Get out." Aisha nodded, her composure returning, but Jamal's eyes burned with defiance. The jazz swelled, masking their tension, but the gala's glamour now felt like a trap. Marcus's presence, a ticking bomb ready to unravel their carefully crafted lie. The Grand Horizon Hall buzzed with the elegance of Pinnacle's gala on October 14, 2025, its chandeliers casting a warm glow over the crowd. Michael, Aisha, and Jamal stood near a floral display, their fake family standing firm despite the undercurrent of dread. Michael's suit felt tight, his bruised jaw throbbing beneath the makeup Aisha had applied. Aisha, poised in her navy dress, maintained a practiced smile, while Jamal, in his blazer, scanned the room with boredom and vigilance. They had mingled successfully, charming colleagues with their story of a quiet family life, but Marcus's arrival had shifted the air. His confident laughter echoed from the entrance, a stark reminder of the threat he posed. Michael whispered, "We need to find David, make our introduction, and leave before Marcus gets closer." Aisha nodded, her grip on his arm steady but tense. Jamal muttered, "Let's move fast." Before they could slip away, Marcus's gaze locked onto them. His smile faltered, recognition flashing in his eyes as he excused himself from his group. He crossed the hall purposefully, his charcoal suit pristine, his stride predatory. Michael's heart pounded and his palms were clammy. Aisha's breath hitched, and Jamal stepped closer to her, his fists clenched. Marcus stopped before them, his voice loud enough to draw nearby eyes. "Well, well, Aisha." "Jamal." Quite the surprise, he said, his tone dripping with irony. "And you must be the new husband." His eyes raked over Michael, scornful. Aisha stood rigid, her voice firm. "This isn't the place, Marcus." He smirked, undeterred. "Oh, I think it is. Hiding with my ex-wife and son, playing house." The word son hit Jamal like a blow, his face tightening with years of resentment. The crowd around them hushed, curious glances turning their way. Michael stepped forward, his voice low but steady. "We're just here for the gala. Marcus, no need for a scene." Marcus laughed, a sharp, mocking sound. "A scene? You're the one parading my family as yours." Before Michael could respond, David approached, his tuxedo crisp, his expression cheerful until he sensed the tension. "Michael, there you are," he said, then noticed Marcus. "And Marcus, good to see you with our family man." He gestured to Aisha and Jamal. "This must be your wife and son, Michael." Michael swallowed, forcing a nod. "Yes, Aisha and Jamal." David beamed, oblivious. "Wonderful. But what's this about?" He frowned, catching Marcus's glare. Marcus seized the moment, his voice rising. "They're not his family, David. Aisha's my ex-wife and Jamal's my son. This guy's been lying to you." Gasps rippled through the crowd, colleagues whispering as the jazz faded into the background. David's face darkened, his eyes darting to Michael. "Is this true?" he demanded. Michael's legs felt weak, the weight of his lie crashing down. Aisha's face flushed with shame, her hands trembling. Jamal, furious, stepped forward. "He left us, David. He doesn't get to talk like he cares." Marcus sneered. "Don't act noble, kid. Your mom's here for money, isn't she?" Aisha's voice shook. "Stop it, Marcus. You abandoned us." David raised a hand, his tone sharp. "Enough. Michael, explain. Now." The hall seemed to shrink, all eyes on them. Michael's throat tightened, his voice barely audible. "It's true. I lied. I'm not married, no kids. I made it up to seem stable for the promotion." The admission hung heavy, murmurs of shock spreading. David's expression turned to disbelief, then betrayal. "You deceived everyone," he said coldly. "And you?" Aisha went along with this. Aisha lowered her gaze, her voice soft. "I needed the money. It was a mistake." Jamal glared at Marcus, his fists tight, but Aisha's hand on his arm kept him silent. David shook his head, his voice cutting. "Michael, you're suspended. Leave now." "Aisha, Jamal, you should go too." Marcus crossed his arms, triumphant. "Told you, David. He's a fraud." Michael's chest ached, the weight of failure crushing. Aisha, humiliated, took Jamal's hand, her eyes glistening. Jamal shot Marcus a look of pure contempt before following her toward the exit. Michael trailed them, the crowd's whispers like knives. Outside, the cold night air stung, the gala's lights fading behind them. Michael wanted to apologize, but words failed. Aisha and Jamal climbed into a taxi, their silhouettes disappearing into the city. Michael stood alone, his suit no shield against the chill of his unraveling life, the lie exposed, and the fragile bond with Aisha and Jamal hanging by a thread. The morning of October 15th, 2025, broke with a pale, unforgiving light filtering through Michael's apartment window in Chicago. The remnants of last night's gala disaster clung to him like damp clothes, his suit discarded on the floor still bore the faint makeup stains covering his bruises. The memory of Marcus exposing his lie, Aisha's humiliated silence, and Jamal's defiant glare replayed in his mind, each moment a fresh cut. Michael sat on the edge of his bed, his head in his hands, the weight of his suspension from Pinnacle Enterprises crushing. His small apartment, bare walls and cluttered coffee table, felt like a cell reflecting his isolation. Overdue bills and a company memo confirming his suspension sat beside a crumpled note from weeks ago, a reminder of his relentless pursuit of approval that led to this mess. He couldn't wallow. He needed to act, to face David and salvage what he could, even if it meant swallowing his pride. Michael dressed in a wrinkled dress shirt and slacks, foregoing the executive suit that now felt like a costume. His face, still marked by the fading bruise from the alley attack, mirrored his battered spirit. He left his apartment, ignoring the curious stare of a neighbor, and caught a bus to Pinnacle's glass tower. The ride was a blur, the city's hum drowned by his guilt over dragging Aisha and Jamal into his lie. Passing their apartment building, he glanced at the third-floor windows, his heart heavy with the urge to apologize, but lacking the courage to face their hurt. At Pinnacle's reception, the air was thick with judgment. The receptionist, a young woman with a tight smile, gave him a pitying look, the news of his scandal already a whisper through the halls. Michael nodded curtly and took the elevator to David's floor, his stomach churning with each ding. The office floor buzzed with morning activity, but colleagues' glances were sharp, some curious, others disdainful. Michael kept his head high, refusing to shrink under their scrutiny. At David's office, he knocked softly, his pulse loud in his ears. "Enter." David's voice called, clipped and stern. Inside, David sat behind a broad desk, reports stacked neatly, his expression hardening as he saw Michael. "I didn't expect you to show your face," he said, leaning back, his fingers drumming on a folder. Michael stood straight, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I came to explain and accept the consequences, sir. I owe you that." David's eyes narrowed, assessing. "You owe me more than an explanation. You lied about a family, brought strangers to my gala, and made a fool of this company." Why Michael swallowed the truth raw. "I wanted to be what you value, a stable, reliable employee. You always talk about family and how it grounds people. I've been alone my whole life, sir. No family work. I thought pretending would make me fit in and earn the promotion. It was selfish, and I'm sorry." David's expression softened slightly, but his tone remained cold. "I push family because it builds loyalty and trust. You broke that trust, Michael, and involving that woman and her son. What were you thinking?" Michael's chest tightened. "Aisha and Jamal needed money. I offered $5,000 to help with their debts. It was my idea, my mistake. Please don't hold it against them." David leaned forward, his voice sharp. "You don't get to play martyr. But I'll be blunt. Marcus's behavior last night raised questions. He was aggressive and vindictive. There are rumors he's been intimidating others, maybe even connected to your bruises." Michael's eyes widened, the alley attack flashing in his mind. "I got a threatening text, and someone jumped me, mentioned Marcus. I didn't want to assume, but—" He trailed off, letting David connect the dots. David sighed, rubbing his temples. "We're looking into Marcus's finances and conduct. If you can provide details, it might help, but don't think this saves you." Michael nodded, recounting the text and the attack, keeping his tone factual. "I want to prove I'm not a liar, sir. For Aisha and Jamal, too." David studied him, then gestured to a chair. "Sit. Here's the deal. You're demoted to administrative assistant with no promotion prospects. Stay honest, help with the Marcus investigation, and we'll see where you stand. One misstep, you're out." Michael's shoulders sagged with relief, though the demotion stung. "Thank you, sir. I won't let you down." David waved him off, his expression weary. "Trust is earned. Michael, start now." Leaving the office, Michael felt a flicker of hope amid the shame. The elevator ride was quieter, and the colleagues' stares were less piercing. He had a chance, however slim, to rebuild. But his thoughts turned to Aisha and Jamal, their hurt faces etched in his mind. He resolved to visit them, apologize, and show he cared beyond the lie. Stepping into the chilly morning, Michael felt the weight of his mistakes and a spark of purpose to make things right, not just for his job, but for the fragile bond he'd formed with the family he'd borrowed. The afternoon of October 16, 2025, draped Chicago in a soft autumn haze, the city's streets quiet under a cloudy sky. Michael stood outside Aisha's apartment building, his heart pounding as he stared at the third-floor windows. The gala's humiliation 2 nights ago, Marcus exposing his lie, Aisha, and Jamal's hurt departure, replayed a relentless loop of guilt in his mind. His demotion to administrative assistant at Pinnacle Enterprises was a lifeline, but it meant nothing without mending the damage he'd caused Aisha and Jamal. His bruised jaw, now fading, ached faintly as he adjusted his worn jacket, a far cry from the polished suit of the gala. The memory of Aisha's flushed face and Jamal's defiant silence weighed heavily, but he'd resolved to face them, to apologize no matter how they received him. Taking a deep breath, he climbed the stairs and knocked on their door, the sound echoing in the dim hallway. Jamal opened the door. His expression guarded, his headphones dangling around his neck. He wore a hoodie, his eyes narrowing as he saw Michael. "What do you want?" he asked, his tone sharp but not hostile. Michael's voice wavered, but held steady. "I need to talk to you and your mom. I owe you an apology. Can I come in?" Jamal hesitated, his gaze searching Michael's face, then shrugged and stepped aside. The apartment was tidy, the faint smell of lavender from a candle mixing with the warmth of home. Aisha emerged from the kitchen, a dish towel over her shoulder, her posture stiffening at the sight of Michael. "You're here," she said, her voice flat, neither welcoming nor angry. She crossed her arms, standing by the couch where Jamal sank, watching silently. Michael cleared his throat, his hands gesturing for peace. "I'm sorry for showing up unannounced. I know I messed up big time. The gala, the lie dragging you both into it. I made you look like fools, and I hate myself for it." Aisha's eyes flickered with hurt, but she stayed silent, letting him continue. "It started as a desperate grab for a promotion, but became more. Spending time with you planning, laughing, it felt real. I care about you both, and am here to make things right if you let me." Aisha's gaze softened slightly, but her voice was sharp. "You used us, Michael. I agreed because I needed the money, but you saw how it ended, Marcus humiliating us, everyone staring." Jamal was crushed. Jamal looked away, his fingers tapping restlessly on his knee. Michael knotted his throat tight. "I know. I was selfish thinking I could fake a family to save my job. But when Leon came at you, when that guy attacked me, I realized I wasn't just protecting my career. I was protecting you. I'm not asking for forgiveness. It's a chance to show I'm no longer a liar." Jamal glanced up, his expression softening. "You stood up for us twice. That was real. But it still stinks, man." Aisha studied Michael, her eyes tracing the bruise on his jaw. She remembered his quick defense against Leon and his willingness to take a punch for them. "Why come back?" she asked. "You got your job, didn't you?" Michael exhaled, sitting across from them. "I got a demotion, not a job guarantee. But that's not why I'm here. I want to stay in your lives honestly, no pretense." Aisha exchanged a look with Jamal, and a silent conversation passed between them. She sighed, sitting down. "I was angry, Michael. Still am. But you didn't run when things got messy. That counts for something." Jamal leaned forward, his voice quieter. "Mom's been through a lot with Marcus. Seeing him gloat hurt her. But you tried to fix it. That's not nothing." Michael's chest warmed, a flicker of hope rising. "I met with David yesterday," he said. "He's investigating Marcus. He suspects fraud, maybe worse based on his behavior, and some financial discrepancies. My statement about the attack helped. He's out resigned this morning." Aisha's eyes widened, relief washing over her. "He's gone," she whispered, the weight of Marcus's shadow lifting slightly. She stood pouring coffee, her movements less guarded. "All right, Michael. Let's talk no lies." "Coffee." He nodded, grateful, as they sat at the kitchen table. The conversation was cautious. Michael shared his demotion and resolve to rebuild trust at work, while Aisha admitted the $5,000 would have cleared her debts, but the trust they'd built meant more. Jamal, sipping soda, grinned. "Still want that console, though." Michael laughed, the tension breaking. "If I keep my job, it's yours. No bribe, just a promise." Aisha's faint smile signaled a truce, fragile but real, as they began to rebuild their bond, tested but enduring. The evening of October 22nd, 2025, wrapped Chicago in a cool, crisp embrace, the city's streetlights casting a soft glow on the quiet sidewalks. Michael, Aisha, and Jamal stepped out of a modest diner, their laughter mingling with the clatter of dishes behind them. The Sunset Grill, with its checkered tablecloths and neon sign, had been Michael's choice for a simple dinner. No gala glamour, no pretense. Just the three of them sharing a meal. Michael's demotion at Pinnacle Enterprises still stung, but his new role as an administrative assistant felt like a fresh start, a chance to rebuild trust. The bruises from his alley attack had faded, leaving only a faint yellow mark on his jaw. a reminder of the cost of his lies. In a cozy sweater, Aisha walked beside him, her smile lighter than it had been in days. Jamal's new gaming console tucked under his arm teased Michael about his terrible taste in diner fries, his grin infectious. The dinner had been a promise kept. No payments, no charades, just a step towards something real. Inside, they'd shared a booth, swapping stories over burgers and milkshakes. Michael recounted a clumsy attempt at cooking pasta, the pot boiling over in his tiny apartment, drawing laughs from Aisha and Jamal. Aisha remembered Jamal's first school play, his over-the-top performance as a tree stealing the show. Rolling his eyes, Jamal countered, "At least I didn't lie about having a family fake dad." The jab was playful, the sting of the gala softened by time and their cautious truce. News of Marcus's downfall had sealed a chapter of their past Pinnacle's investigation, uncovered his fraudulent expense reports, leading to his abrupt resignation. Aisha's relief was palpable, the shadow of her ex-husband lifting, giving her and Jamal closure. "He's gone for good," she'd said over dinner, her voice steady. "We don't have to look over our shoulders anymore." Michael nodded, grateful his honesty with David had helped expose Marcus, a small redemption for his mistakes. As they lingered outside the diner, the night air crisp against their skin, Michael adjusted his jacket, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the weather. "You know," he said, his voice soft, "I thought hiring you two would save my job, but you saved me from myself. I was so caught up in work, I forgot what it's like to have people to lean on." Aisha's eyes met his, her smile gentle. "You gave us a chance too, Michael. Not just the money, but trust. That's worth more." Jamal, fiddling with his consoles box, grinned. "Yeah, and you're not the worst fake dad. Maybe keep the cooking to takeout, though." They laughed, the sound carrying down the quiet street, a stark contrast to the tense whispers of the gala. The city's hum felt distant, their bond a small, steady anchor in its chaos. Michael glanced at them, his chest light. "This story's been wild, like something you'd see on a late-night YouTube binge." Jamal smirked, catching the hint. "Yeah, people should comment on what they think. Did we pull off the fake family, or what?" Aisha chuckled, playing along. "They'd better like it, or I'm keeping the console." Michael grinned, adding, "And if you're hooked, subscribe for whatever comes next. Maybe we'll cook that terrible pasta together." Their playful banter felt natural, a nod to the audience they imagined sharing their tale. The diner's neon sign flickered behind them, glowing warmly on their faces. Aisha's smile held a quiet tenderness, and Jamal's teasing hid a newfound ease. For the first time in years, Michael felt part of something, not a lie, but a beginning. They strolled toward the bus stop, Jamal swinging his console box. Aisha's laughter mingling with Michael's. The gala's humiliation, Marcus's threats, and the weight of their deception had forged an unlikely family, not bound by contracts, but shared trials. As they parted, agreeing to meet again soon, Michael lingered, watching Aisha and Jamal disappear into the night. He took a deep breath, the city's pulse syncing with his own. Their story wasn't a fairy tale, but it was theirs, messy, real, and worth fighting for. If you loved this journey, drop a comment with your thoughts, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories of second chances and unexpected bonds.